Hi, Emptiness Part 4. If you've made it to here, it's a good effort. I think the last session was quite difficult. Hopefully it wasn't off-putting. Anyway, if you've made it to here, good, and we'll keep going. Don't forget, you need to study these types of teachings, these ideas, again and again, and learn how to see them. For most of us, the ways that our mind has been looking at things, seeing things, understanding and interpreting things has been a particular way for a long time. Those habits are deeply set. And yet, we have the word transformation. It's quite possible to collapse it all with one realization. Or maybe it all just comes together for you bit by bit. And that's how it's been for me. Alright, sit up straight, close your eyes. Have a big breath in and a deep sigh. Try to become relaxed in this moment. Settle yourself into the feeling of being. Perhaps being more than this body. Being awareness of consciousness itself. Imagine yourself being completely free of form, shape, and name. Even this thing that feels like a body, it is made up of many, many parts. In between every cell, there is space. Within every cell, there is space. Imagine yourself as completely boundless, infinite space in all directions, without name or form, just awareness of being. Have a deep sigh. Open your eyes. So, this session we're going to look at dependent arising. In the last session, we looked at the idea of imputed by thought. All things are merely labeled imputed by thought. That means that these things exist only and dependent upon the labeling that we give them. So therefore, all things are dependent arising. They only arise once labeled by thought, by the mind that labels. This means no thing exists free of causes and conditions inherently of itself. Everything is based upon that which sees and defines it. Okay, so I mentioned in the last session Lama Tsongkhapa prays for dependent arising. I'll read you now some more from this. Please close your eyes. The start of this text is like this. He's talking to his teacher. I bow down to the unsurpassable teacher whose supreme wisdom realized and taught the conquering dependent arising. Whatever problems there are in the world have ignorance as their root. You taught dependent arising, the seeing of which refutes ignorance. Whatever depends on conditions is itself empty of inherent existence. What excellent method of instruction is more extraordinary than this teaching? Feel your breath. If you get lost, ground yourself in awareness of the body and the breath. Have a sigh. So, everything depends on causes and conditions. Nothing is free of causes and conditions. Nothing exists inherently of itself. And the main cause and condition for all things in your reality is your mind. Your mind, which perceives and conceives of everything that it sees. All things that it sees become labeled things. They become conceptions, concepts, and therefore their shape of existence, their nature, is not of their own alone because of the influence of your mind and the way that it sees things, the way that it's labeling things. Now, we've already considered that the mind may not be so reliable. And this is really important for any experienced meditator to face, to really have a look at their own mind and start to question the beliefs and truisms and certainties that it has and lives by and responds emotionally to. Like when I say, that person, he's not a good person. Well, I've actually made up a story about that person based on the way I perceive them. I can't say if it's true or not. And another thing is, I can change my mind. A year later I may like that person. So we can see the mind is not so reliable. Here's something from Osho. Tantra, the supreme understanding. The root problem of all problems is mind itself. The first thing to be understood is what this mind is, of what stuff it is made, whether it is an entity or just a process, whether it is substantial or just dreamlike. And unless you know the nature of the mind, you will not be able to solve any problems of your life. You may try hard, but if you try to solve single individual problems, you are bound to fail, because in fact, no individual problem exists. mind is the problem. If you solve this problem or that, it won't help because the root remains untouched. Get a sense of your mind right now. Where is this mind? Is it inside the head? The labeled head? Is your mind merely a labeled thing? Does it have true existence? Or is it dependent upon thought? Is it a constructed thing? A merely labeled concept? Does it exist inherently of itself, free of causes and conditions? Or does it exist dependent upon thought? If it does exist dependent on thought, it is not inherently existent, or as is the proper language, it is empty of inherent existence. Have a sigh. Now let's look at the object to be refuted. This is from the Dalai Lama's book. Reflecting on how an object is a dependent arising, as in, arising dependent on causes and conditions, dependent upon its parts, and dependent on thought, greatly helps to overcome the sense that it exists in and of itself. However, if you do not figure out exactly what phenomena are empty of, what is being negated, then at the end of this analysis you will feel that the object does not exist at all. This experience will cause phenomena to seem ephemeral, like insubstantial drawings next to nothing. This mistake comes from not distinguishing between the absence of inherent existence and non-existence. Failure to distinguish these makes it impossible to appreciate the dependent arising of phenomena, whereas it is crucial to understand that emptiness means dependent arising, and dependent arising means emptiness. Have a sigh. That's an important part there. A lot of people go down the wrong road with the notions of emptiness, and they turn it into non-existence, and then their questions are based on the misunderstanding therein. Exactly as His Holiness said there, it's important to clarify that things are empty of inherent existence, but they do still exist. They are not non-existent. And then we have the notion of true existence. This is what the mind does. The mind and the way it perceives things is part of the causes and conditions. But the mistake it makes is it doesn't realize that. And so it gives true existence to the labeling and the constructions that it has made. That is a mistake, to label things as absolutely certainly the way that we see them. But it would also be incorrect to say that things do not exist, which leaves us with the real truth of things, which is no thing exists inherently of itself. All things are dependent arising, dependent on the labeling and construction. They do not have non-existence, but they do not have the fixed and true existence that our minds generally believe they have. Close your eyes, get a sense of that. Have a sigh. So, we are responsible for the labels. We live by them through ignorance. Returning to I am that again. Once you realize that the world is your own projection, you are free of it. However is the picture, beautiful or ugly, you are painting it, and you are not bound by it. Realize that there is nobody to force it on you, that it is due to the habit of taking the imaginary to be real. See the imaginary as imaginary and be free of fear. See that the objects to be refuted are the labels of true existence that your mind is giving things. They are empty of inherent existence. The mistake is to be believing them. I mentioned before the sound of one hand clapping, where the mind superimposes a picture and it meets with nothing. Those ideas are not true. And so, the answer to the great question, true existence is the empty sound of one hand clapping. Thank you very much. Take care.